let me adjust the camera, and other than that, we should be ready.
Okay. I'd like to open up the meeting of the steering committee. We first need to review our minutes from the July the 6th meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes? Mr. Ford? Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Mr. Clarity, grab a second. Have a motion by Mr. Ford and a second by Mr. Clarity to approve the minutes as submitted. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. It is done. Ms. Hadley, thank you so much for doing such a good job with the minutes. We certainly appreciate it. One thing I needed to, it wasn't on the agenda that I needed to bring to everyone. Our student rep for school is starting back. Ethan Bowles, of course, was a junior last year. He came on kind of in the middle of the year, and he says he would like to continue on this year. My question is, do we want to also open it for another student, or between him and other students, or not? I didn't want to make that decision solely on my own. We can do either one. I know we talked about opening it up if we needed to.
What I recalled was we opened it up.
Just wanted to make sure before
make it open.
Wanted to make sure before we sent it over to high school that everybody was still thought that's what we needed to do. Okay. We'll send that over to the high school, see if we can see if there's any interest at all. Maybe. Right. And I think that was the main issue. We didn't want to knock him out of doing it his senior year if he wanted to. And he has said he wants to, and just wanted to be sure with everyone. I think he did a great job, and I'm certainly glad to have him back again. And but we can just in the, I guess you'd say, the arena of fairness, we probably need to go ahead and put it out there. Just that came up the last day or two, and I said, since we were meeting tonight, I would just want to make sure that that's everything. Mayor, I think most everything we have on the agenda tonight is coming from you on these various things. So if it's okay, I'll just turn it over to you and let you proceed with it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first thing is the jail needs assessment. This is what we were working with CTAS, the jail consultant, Jim Hardon. And he did get that needs assessment to us, I think, in early June. It has been reviewed by Mr. Hard. He came and did a presentation to the County Corrections Partnership Committee. And one of the recommendations in there was the jail will need to be, according to his estimate, confined total beds of 105, and that's different types of beds for the different classifications of inmates, and does include some programming space which we don't currently have. So currently we don't offer any kind of education programs or substance abuse counseling, mental health counseling, anything like that at the jail, and it would include some space for that as well as part of the jail classification for the inmates. One of the recommendations of, or at least a thought of the committee, was to look at building a criminal justice center, which would have 2 courtrooms, the sheriff's office onto it, and obviously your circuit court clerk criminal will be over there. The main reason for that is they've had times over here at the current justice center where they've had 4 courts going on at one time and only two courtrooms. And also they've had state inmates that have been brought in, and they've had to keep them in a van in the parking lot because there's no secure area that meets the state's qualifications inside the building. And right now, if you bring an inmate over for the jail, you got to walk them across an unsecured parking lot. So given all those, that was the request of the County Corrections Partnership Committee, was look at doing an entire criminal justice center. And so that's what came out of that, bring it in front of this committee, since it hasn't been in front of law enforcement technically yet. It did come up there when Mr. Bill Bass, I think's his name, if I get it wrong, I apologize to him, and William Wall with TCI, the Tennessee Corrections Institute, came and did a presentation at law enforcement, and that's what started the process to create the County Corrections Partnership Committee. And then we were going in front of them with this initial needs assessment and then come over to the county side. So that's what we're in the process of doing right now. I can answer any questions on the needs assessment. I think I sent it out to everyone so you can do an initial review of it. I'm trying to bring it up on my computer right now. I'm sorry, we've been having technical issues with the one and back, so I've been trying to get another system going, so I didn't have it up in front of me right now, but I can go ahead and answer any questions from memory while I bring it up if you want to go ahead and ask any questions. What's going to be the outcome of the building that you use justice in? That will be used for civil court, so your chancery court, your circuit court civil, your general session civil. So it'll be kind of like what Wilson County does. They got a criminal justice complex that's got the jail and everything built onto it. When they're arrested, they bring them into a secured salary port. They take it inside where there's a secure area. They're immediately seen by a judicial commissioner, or they're held with a judicial commissioner. And they also have a separate, used to be the old church on, I don't know what the name of that road is, but kind of parallels South Cumberland. They turned that into a civil center. So that's what we would recommend we do with this one. And that way you still got your circuit civil over here, and then your chancery court and everything's over here. And your juvenile court doesn't really need to be in a secure facility like the criminal justice center, so it would also continue to meet over here as well. Not currently. We still don't know. They just gave 105. Now, when you build it, you're going to need to build a little bit bigger, because they want you to go ahead and include a kitchen and storage space that's big enough to expand it in the future without having to go back and expand the kitchen and everything. I think they brought up an example where that was done in one county. They didn't do that ahead of time, so when they built on, they had to go back, and it was a real problem to expand their kitchen and storage area and all that. So right now, I couldn't tell you exactly what the square footage is going to be. My estimate, and this is just my estimate using things I've seen online, probably somewhere between 20 to 25 million. I think Wilson County's building one right now, and it was almost 100 million, I believe. We don't have any land that's going to meet the size they're looking for right now, so we'd also have to purchase the land. The last estimate I heard was no less than 10.
One thing that talked about was trying to have the full digital exchange, much like we did with high school, where we could add on to it at future date without having to scrap our facility. If you do that, the design becomes very important, and having extra land to be able to expand later would be possible. I think some of the support facilities inside, such as kitchen space, you're not going to equip it, but you're going to have the space within the room to add more equipment. Same thing with laundry facilities, things of that nature to support part of it. You could be able to add the equipment if and when you expanded it. Common sense tells us that at some point in time we will expand it. We have to, we're growing, and that's going to become more apparent, I think, as we go forward on a lot of these facilities. Mr. Nolan?
Will the courtrooms be made big enough to have a big trial, be made, or are they going to be small, kind of like they're over here, or?
Well, we can make them whatever we want to make them, I guess. That's, I think that's one thing that this committee has really, will be looking at, is to make sure that whatever we design is going to be more than adequate for the needs. That's, the facility over here is, we all know, we were all involved with it one way or the other. was shoehorned into an existing building. And with a new facility, you're not going to have to do that. You can design it for what flows best, what is best use of space. And I think the key on this is going to also be the architect, having an architect that understands criminal justice and understands our desires to try to build something that will be usable for many years and be able to add on to it easily. Mayor, did I answer that, do you think? Well, did I miss anything on that?
Yes, sir, that's something that I believe it actually came up. They talked about some jury trials, and currently when they do jury selection, they actually come back over here to this courtroom because it's not big enough to do it over there. And then all the stakeholders that are on that committee, that's Judge Kane, Judge Linville, your district attorney's on there, public defender's on there, member of planning commission, some jail staff, the jail administrator, sheriff and I are there. We're not technically on the committee, but we're there because they're advising us. All of them asked as we go forward, get an engineer and go forward, they would like to have their input on the facility. And so it should be more than enough to meet their needs going forward, because they said that's come up in a couple of places where they weren't exactly included on the process, and the facility that was designed was maybe not up to the standards it should have been, or it wasn't able to accommodate what they wished it would have been. So as we go forward and get an engineer, which is going to be another item on the agenda tonight, but we will keep them in the loop to make sure that it's designed adequately and meets the needs of everybody involved.
I think it tends to sometimes get overlooked is storage space, ancillary meeting rooms for the attorneys to be able to meet with their clients in a secure area. Things like that sometimes tend to be minimized or cut out of the plan because people don't understand the necessity of them, I guess. So I think we've got the power players that will be using the building in place to give us their input on the building. So I think Mayor did a good job of putting that group together, and so far it seems to be headed in that direction.
Will
Mr. Nolan?
will the whole department be, sheriff's department be in that building, or just the sheriff's office?
Well, since it's combining the jail and it'll be the entire sheriff's department will be in that one building, whereas right now you've got technically half of it's over here at the jail and the other half's over at the old city hall. This will be all in one facility. So when they come in if they arrested somebody, whether it's without a warrant or with a warrant, they bring them in, they will also be able to go over to the sheriff's department and do their paperwork right there and still have access to the jail and anything that's needed right there.
That is a desire. If you try to split up some of these operations into two campuses, you may save money on building a building, but your operational costs for keeping two buildings going will far outweigh what your savings by using another building might be. So all of those things that I think will be factored into whatever is finally decided. And certainly, I don't think there's anything now that's been decided or any preconceived notions. It's still very, very early in this process. But we couldn't, everybody says, well, where are you going to put it? Well, we don't know where we're going to put it because we didn't know how much land we had to have, and because we didn't know how big we were going to build it. And all of these type of things that, are beginning to fall in place. And now that we have a size, we can start looking for adequate land and things of that nature and move on with the process. Mr. Gold?
A couple of questions. So the first one I'd ask, 105 beds that we're looking at building. I see that over the last 11 years, we've averaged 35.7 inmates on average yearly in our jail. Continuing on with that question, 35.7, 105. This is over the last 11 years. We've averaged 35.7 inmates on a daily run there, according to this document here, Table 2. And then when I go over to Trouser County here, Table 14, looking at the document that was sent out, and I noticed the Trousdale County population, citizen population, 11,211. Where did that number come from?
It came from, give me just a second, it was one of the divisions, whatnot, of the University of Tennessee that does all their statistical analysis. I can't remember the exact name of it right now, but the jail consultant contacted them and looked at the census information of where population projections in the future, and that's where he got that number from. He did say those numbers will be updated when the census is released in September.
So how many of those people out there are already impressive with people out here that are 2,500 jail less than folks? So I'm asking, are we really playing a leg of period type size, or are we in this Decatur, Jackson, Lewis maze that they put us in? I know it's very loud, but where are we really sitting on the number? That was another question on my thought there, where if we start looking at some really interesting numbers here, those are in the same similar size of us at 59. These not good deals. You have 59, just out of 59, just out of 4, just out of 59. I guess I'm just trying to understand how we're looking at 105 beds in over the last 11 years. I'm honestly questioning these assessments and put funds here on these 105 beds and is what I'm questioning at this point. I'm looking at that in front of me and trying to understand how that's assessed to me with 105 beds. That's all I'm asking.
Well, it's based on population and projections over the next 20 years, and I think if you'll see down there's a chart somewhere that shows all the way up to 2041, and it gives you what they believe the male population is going to be, female population, and they do it based on, you can pretty much go back and look historically, there's a certain percentage of population that goes through your jail, and they're also basing it on past trends of bookings and inmate stays, which I have an analysis of in here about, how long inmates typically are in there. So that's where they got that number from, and that's based, again, he used the population projection going into the future. I believe I did tell him that, our population numbers, if you look at them, does include, our census numbers include the prison population because they meet the definition of residents. So I did let him know that, some of that population is in there, and he did say they adjusted for it, if I remember correctly. That's still based on the population projections and the statistical analysis they run. This is what he's looking at. And that is to carry you forward as they see going forward. That's where they come up to 105 beds. And if you look, the beds are divided up, and I'm trying to see what page that's on. It shows you kind of how the breakdown, I believe it's on page 25. They give you a breakdown of what the beds are for. You got 2 dormitory pods, which are for work details, both exterior and interior, and that's 20 beds there, and then two-person cells for medical and special needs, which we currently do not have. It's 10 there. A mixture of 1 and 2-person cells, that's 11. That'd be restricted housing. That segregation, that is for your dangerous inmates, which right now we don't have a place to really segregate those out. And that's one of the things that he talks about in here is they do come in and do basically it's a risk assessment based on the inmates coming in and try to see, do they have a B for one of the inmates that's already in there? Are they dangerous compared to the other population? Like I said, right now, we don't have room to do that. And then pod 5 is 2-person cells, that's 24, that'd be medium security, that's pretty much going to be your non-violent drug offenders and some things like that. And then another one, 2-person cells at 24, that's your minimum and medium security. That's probably where you're going to get, again, some of your non-violent drug offenders, somebody got caught with a certain amount of drugs, but they don't have any history of violence or anything. So, and he based that on past increases in male population, and then your female housing came up the same thing, which right now our current jail was never designed to house females. And we've shot up to routinely going over our population on that since it's 0. And then I think we moved it to 6. So we normally have at least 6 to 12 to 14 female inmates. Putting those together, that's where you came up with the 105 beds, because everybody is seeing a drastic increase in their female housing, and plus also your pretrial incarceration has gone up.
Also, I think one thing, they don't as much look at the average as what the peak. Whenever we exceed 85% of the capacity, is when we're required to do something about it. Like they look at the number of times in the last, at least the last 2 years, I think they've been back. COVID skews the numbers because last year the numbers were greatly down, and I think he basically indicated, now remember to us, that until they get the fresh census numbers, that some of this data might need to change. And, I know that was discussed in the last meeting that we had. And he explained that it makes sense when you look at it, and I first looked at it, it absolutely did not make sense to me. I questioned a lot and in it.
I'm glad you could explain, but I'm still, you have to look where we are. Numbers, data, understand, like any other play. I see some data issues, and I'm trying to understand how we can make some issues.
And that meeting was recorded, and it is posted on fake YouTube, so if you want to go back and watch it, it's on there. But the 85% population, he says, once you get 85%, you're kind of at your max capacity because you need to reserve that other capacity to move inmates around for various reasons, or you also have to look at, you may have a surge if they go out and do a crackdown and go out and arrest, 10 to 15 people, you got to have that surge beds there to compensate for that. And then sometimes you'll see a spike in probation violations or something come in. So that's why he said you need that extra pad there for any of those needs that pop up, and that's why he uses the 85% population number or capacity number for that's really what you want to peak out at. Once you get over 85%, that really restricts you in what you can do as far as moving inmates around and dealing with those issues that may occur. And like I said, that is posted on YouTube. I can send a link out to everybody so you can go look on it. It's on the county YouTube channel. It's under County Corrections Partnership playlist.
I remember about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, taking a tour of the jail here with the sheriff and some other commissioners, and I think he had 60 inmates in there at that time. And so I could easily see the 105 in the future based on what he had that evening.
Mr. Jordan, taking into consideration what y'all said about COVID, changing things a little bit, I just took out 2020, 2021, just threw them out. Change that number back, and we've averaged 37.5 over those 9 years from 2011 to 2019. So I threw that piece out. 37 is our 85% capacity. So we've averaged right at that 85% capacity. I do understand what you're saying. That's why I'm having trouble with these numbers. I mean, truly, 85% is the number you're looking at. 37 is what I'm seeing there. We're 37 and a half is what we've averaged over those 9 years. I do understand that it's probably increasing, but I'm struggling to see how it's increasing to 105. That's what I'm saying. And I'll certainly put that on there.
I had the same reaction when I first read it.
And I do understand there's probably days where we've been with high numbers, and I also hear a lot of conversation about reduction. And we're planning 20 years out. And I understand we're trying to get a moving target out here, don't get me wrong. I do understand that piece. But when all the conversation seems to be around reduction of inmates, hard for me to see how we can plan that forward with that in mind.
Then we talk about what we're gonna build, how big it's gonna be and all that. We better be talking about how we're gonna pay for it pretty quick. Even if we are able to keep the wheel backs, if we're getting off to a very slow start on that. I keep being told, well, we don't know how much to charge. It don't matter. You ain't gonna get enough wheel tax to pay for all that. You're talking $20–25 million, that's 3 times more than the high school costs. Plus you'll have $2.5 million contingency fee. So you start out at, say, 25, you might wind up at 27.5. I'm here to tell you folks, that is a big amount of money to throw on the people of Charleston County. Better do a lot of thinking about it before we do that.
Just first,
I want to add to what Commissioner Gully talked about, and we mentioned this earlier tonight, that whatever we do with this project, that you plan for the future. So I don't know that you would start out with 105, but you start out with a facility that's large enough that you can add on as you go. So yes, that's at a future cost of construction. However, if you plan this in such a way that your property can absorb it as you move along, you might be at 105 so many years down the road, and you know that in advance, but you only build the project to a certain level that you would accommodate and have a little wiggle room today with the ability to add to it as you win. That's just a thought that I had when I was listening to some of those numbers, because 105 is high. We may get there, we don't know, but you always want to protect yourself as we do things in the future in terms of long-term goals in mind.
Well, I know, we're not gonna decide this tonight, not really here to decide this tonight. I think, it's ready to be sent to law enforcement and, I guess the buildings committee both will need to probably look at this. That's the thing there.
Sorry, I cut you off. I just put this on here, and I talked to the sheriff, asked him in the past, since this is a sheriff's facility, just like the jail and the current justice center, asked him if he'd ever been in front of the building committee. He said in the past, when it dealt with his buildings or anything like that, it always just went to law enforcement. So I included building committee. I thought if it does go to that, try to do a joint meeting. But again, he says it's never went to a building committee. Any of his facilities have never been to a building committee. It's always been law enforcement and then up.
It would be my recommendation that goes to both. Mr. Clarity?
Has there been any date discussed on when this project needs to start, or how far out in the future that
Well, I
we're
mean,
looking at?
it has started, again, with the committee to assess whether there's a need and what the size of the need would be, and then put it to law enforcement and buildings, and once they come up with something, once we entertain an architect or an engineering firm to give us some hard sizes and figures, then it would go to budget and finance to try to find the money.
What I'm getting at, if they come in the next meeting and say, let's go, we don't have the money to do it. We need some advancement of some kind, so we can maybe figure out how to help pay for this or whatever. Because if they come in the next 2 or 3 meetings, they say, start this next year, what we gonna do?
Guess then we would try to figure out where we could find the money. If we could, we didn't. If there's no money, you can't do it. I don't care what they ask or what they say or what they suggest. I mean, but how are you gonna know how much money? Like we've said many times, until we know the scope of the project and get some engineering and some architectural to give us plans and estimates of what things are gonna cost, you don't know how much you're talking about. You can say 25, I can say 10, I hear 15, how about 12? I mean, you've got to take this in the logical steps. First was a needs assessment, then would be to get an RFQ as far as entertain an architect or engineering firm to give you a design. Once you have a design and know how much property you need for that design, then you can decide if you're going to do it, at least in theory, and try to find property. All of this is going to be, this is years. This is not days. I mean, this whole thing's been going on now for, what, 3 years or more? I mean, just to get to this point. I mean, it's, and even this data that we're looking at here next month, when we get the census, we're going to be looking at new data. It's going to be different. But this gives you some starting point, at least, to look at and compare with. Unless I'm missing something, I think this just needs to be sent on to the law enforcement committee and building committee. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions there that can't be answered the first night, that are going to have to be, the answers be found out, and we'll have to, come back at a later date and try to assess it. I mean, this is a process, guys. This is not a decision. As far
At this point, there's not a building committee meeting set for this month. If this body would like to send it before the building committee, are they looking at this month or next month to be fine?
that would be up to the chairman. That would be up to the chairman of the building committee to set the date if they want to. I mean, they haven't set a meeting date because they didn't have anything to do with that.
That's right, we didn't have anything
One.
that was pressing, so there wasn't a meeting set for this month. I mean, we could work and rush one in, but I didn't know if that was necessary or not.
I don't see why it would be. I mean, Mayor, do you see that it would necessitate trying to rush out a building committee meeting?
just for the purpose, I need to know how to structure the RFQ. Am I doing just a jail? Am I doing a justice center? That's been the holdup on the RFQ, which is the next step of the process, is put your RFQ together so you can get your engineering firm come out. Because they're gonna have to assess your sites to see what size land you're gonna need. They're gonna have to help us pick out which site is the best. And at the same time, we're also gonna have CTAS do a staffing analysis so they can give us kind of a projection on labor costs to staff this facility going forward over the next 20 years.
So you'd like to see it this month?
I would like to see it as soon as possible, because we need to get the RFQ out there, and that's kind of what we were told, is if we can get the RFQ out there to get an engineering firm on to help us start answering some of these questions. So if we could do it sometime this month, again, like I said, in the past, the sheriff said it'd never been a building committee, because I talked to him ahead of time, said, do we need to send it to building as well? And he said it only went to law enforcement in the past, so I didn't call you to ask him to schedule it based on what he had told me.
As far as your RFQ, are you planning on it being for engineering services or architectural services?
Well, they're kind of used interchangeably, but at this point, you're gonna have to have somebody come in and do a site assessment, soil analysis, and all those kind of things, so that's gonna be more an engineering firm than an architectural firm.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fuller?
As slow as this thing seems to be going, said it before, we'll say it one more time, we need to get our wheel tax set in place before May the 5th of next year, or it sunsets and it's over with, and you can take it back to have it voted on, and they're gonna vote it down just like you did the half-feed sales tax. But why can't we, as a board, go on and get our wheel tax in place? Say, well, we don't know how much. It don't matter how much, because you ain't gonna get it all wheel tax anyway. But at least you won't have 38% of the people falling back with $20 to $25 million, letting all the other people go free. That's what's gonna happen if we don't get busy.
Mr. Long?
Can we get it in time, maybe to have the building committee have their meeting at the same time that the law enforcement's having theirs, all meet together, or one after the other?
Time to have it published for them?
I don't know. Not enough time. That's what I was asking, would there be enough time?
Yeah,
Had we known this is the direction that, Mayor Collins needed to go in, we might have been able to, do that, but, I mean, and then, I just say, our decision tonight is who are you gonna send it to? And I think that's the first thing, and,
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
the deadline to get it in the Vidette will be tomorrow morning. If it's printed in the Thursday Vidette, that's 6 days before the meeting. Court cases of general held for a called meeting, 5 days notice is sufficient, so you could do it.
we've got law enforcement scheduled for 1 week from tonight. So how are you gonna get it in Thursday's paper when this is Tuesday?
Because 10 a.m. tomorrow morning is the deadline for us to submit calendar notices that'll be printed on Thursday. Thursday counts as a day on the time, so you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that's 6 days.
How are you gonna get it in?
We submit it to Mr. Gregory before our deadline tomorrow, and it'll be in Thursday's paper. Our deadline to get calendar notices in, according to what I'm looking at, is tomorrow.
Our deadline for Thursday's paper, which is published on Wednesday, is Tuesday.
I'm looking at my computer right now, and this is what we have for every week. 10 a.m. Vidette deadline for calendar events. Monday was the deadline for any kind of, Monday is the deadline for ads and articles, but as calendar notices, it's tomorrow.
We can get it in there, I guess we could, but
See if you can get it in there, and we'll have a meeting jointly.
will say this one more time. When you rush a meeting of something of this importance to the public, it looks like you're trying to pull something. And you may disagree with me, that's just my opinion. I've been down this road too many times before, but this is not an emergency. There is no reason that we have to rush this meeting. I mean, I'd rather see us call it toward the end of the month and have time to announce it in the paper, at the other commission meetings and things of that nature, to make sure that everybody was. But that's solely up to the decision of the chair. If you send it to this committee and the committee chairman wants to get with the mayor and they think they can do adequate notice, that's their business, it's not our business. In my opinion, which I'm not supposed to have. But I tend to have it. What's the will of the body? What's the motion? You tell me what you want to do.
Make the motion, you send it to both committees and let them figure out when they're gonna have the date to take place to jointly meet.
Have a motion to send the jail needs assessment on to law enforcement committee and building committee, hopefully to have a joint session if possible. Have a second, Mr. Nolan. Any further discussion on this, Mr. Gold?
So we're voting to send this jail's need assessment to the these two committees. This one. Good.
It's my understanding of the motion. Just,
So
no,
we have a joint meeting if possible.
If possible.
if possible. Just know that next month it will change. So don't know what you accomplished. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? 3 noes. Show of hands for yeses. 1, 2, 3. 3 yeses. Noes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 noes. Okay. That one failed. Now what are we going to do? Is that a motion, Mr. Gregory? Yes. Make a motion to have the law enforcement committee as scheduled. Okay, and
I'll second that.
so you want to send it to the law enforcement committee and the building committee, but not necessarily congruent. And you made the second, have a motion by Mr. Gregory and a second by Mr. Ferguson. Is there any discussion on this one? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay. We have 1 no.
Yes.
We will send this on over. I think it will be duly noted that there are questions about what's there and that those figures are probably going to change within the next few weeks. I think that's all we can do at this point. Next on the agenda was the RFQ for engineering services on the proposed jail center. Mayor, do you think there's anything we can do with that until this comes out of law enforcement committee?
Well, the RFQ and the jail needs assessment are kind of the same thing for the same purpose. Even if they decide not to do anything with it this month, right now, this committee just needs to decide where to send it to, and the only logical place is the law enforcement committee.
Okay. So we need to take this up in law enforcement, is what you're asking us to do.
Yes.
Hear a motion? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on. Next, Comcast lease on communication tower. I believe that we were sent a copy of this, and this needs to go to the building committee. Why would this need to go to the?
I just put it on there just in case. My honest opinion is this has been a lease that's been in place since 1980 something with the town of Hartsville. I can feel county attorney's already looked on it, says it meets form and content. It's just re-upping what we're already doing. I'd feel better just sending it on with the full commission, but I just put it in there in case you wanted to send it somewhere else.
Mr. Clarence.
Why wouldn't this be sent to communication committee instead of buildings?
I really don't think it has anything to do with communication within the body. It's strictly a legal thing on them renting space.
It has nothing to do with the internal communication systems of the county. It's Comcast leases space for us to provide their internet service to the public at large. So it's not anything that we have getting service from them, it's just a lease of piece of property.
What would buildings have to do with it?
Quite frankly, I think it just needs to go to the full body for just a vote to authorize the mayor to enter into this contractual agreement. Would be my thinking, but if we want committee to look at it, I mean, budget and finance could look at it if nothing else for just the dollars involved in it, but mayor's recommending building committee.
Well, no, I said, I put that on there as a suggestion where you could send it. I said, I think it would be better to go to the full commission.
Mr. Ford.
Well, have they given you any idea of what they're willing to pay for?
Yeah.
I believe the terms are set forth in the agreement that was sent.
Yeah.
And I think under state law, it's a certain percentage of their sale, of their revenues. Well, but it's pretty much set under state law. It's a certain percentage of what they get, so we don't really have anything to do with it. It's just to renew a lease that has been in place in one form or another since the 1980s.
Have a motion by Mr. Harsh and a second by Mr. Gregory to send this on to the full body. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll just add it to the agenda for the regular commission meeting, Mayor. Next, health insurance benefit review.
Yeah, as part of the, in the past I called a wage study, I'm going to call it a compensation study because it was not just looking at wages, I also looked at health insurance benefits and leave and all that. Part of it did talk about how we compare to other communities, whether they're cities or counties, as far as our health insurance. And so, given up, and I've already talked to Chairman Gregory about taking a look at that again. Based on what they gave us and talking to other individuals, it was recommended to maybe look at doing an RFQ for a health insurance broker. And since the health insurance committee is what is set up under state law to do with those issues, I just asked it to be sent to the insurance committee to look at that.
On the benefits review and the broker RFQ, that needs to go in, I would assume both need to go to the insurance committee first.
Well, the health insurance part of the benefits review, it also talks about sick leave and vacation and all that stuff. But the health insurance is a part of what they talk about, along with also disability and some other things. So the insurance related parts of the benefits review would not be on the personnel, they'd be on the insurance committee.
So, Mr. Bell.
So as I'm looking at this health insurance piece, I do want to say, when we were talking about raises, bonuses, and cost of living raises last year, we had those conversations. I had quite a few conversations with individuals that work in our county, they're employed by our county, and this was definitely a place they asked us to look at. So I definitely appreciate that it's finally, in front of us that we're looking at health insurance. We're gonna have a conversation about health insurance, because that's one of the things that certainly came out in conversations regular. Hey, can you look at our benefits on the health insurance side? you know, we can give a 50-cent raise and it takes 75 cents to increase the health insurance for that year, kind of thing. I mean, honestly, folks, you know, where can we make the biggest bang for our employees' pocket is definitely in those benefits right there that are untaxed, but yet come out on us, on our employees at that point. Definitely a place that I'm glad we're finally looking at. I will make a motion that we send that to the insurance committee. We can include both.
So the motion is to restate your motion, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I would make a motion that we send both D&E here over tonight's agenda, health insurance benefits review and health insurance broker RFQ consideration to the insurance committee.
The motion is to send item D and E both to the insurance committee. Any further discussion on that one? Yes.
Well, currently, we have August 19th is available for any kind of meetings if you want to do it then, but since Personnel Committee is going to start looking at the rest of the compensation study as well as a personnel policy, look at, I'd like to do it as, if we could do it on the 19th, that'd be good because January 1st starts our new insurance term.
Be up to the chairman. It's up to you. We do have a motion and a second to send this on to the insurance committee. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now, Mr. Gregory, would you like to set that date and time for that meeting? Tentatively? 19th at 6 o'clock. Anything else on that, Mayor?
No, sir.
Okay, budget amendments, yeah, of course, these will automatically go to budget finance committee. I'm not sure what this ULPRF grant is. Can you explain it, please?
That is the ADA improvements over at Trade Park as far as the sidewalk and the inclusive play equipment. It's a grant we applied for last year. We did end up getting that grant. And, it's a 50-50 grant, so the state's part is going to be, we got on here 98,000, so it'll also be another 98,000 on us, and that's part of kind of the understanding of getting the grant. The TDEC asked us to look and trying to make some kind of improvement to the turf and the rest of it. We did agree to, we can do some kind of fibrous wood substitute instead of doing another thing that was 4 times more. They would be willing to accept that, especially around the play sets and those kind of things. So that would also be included on it. That's where you get the 240.
So I'm a little shaky on how 98 turned into 240. I understand twice 98 to get that. Tell me again what the other.
The Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation came out and looked at Trade Park and saw the areas around the swing set and said it was not safe and they have concerns about it. So they asked us to look into doing some kind of safety improvement along with this grant. And we did look into it. I contacted Kimley Horn, who had helped us do the application. We looked at 2 options that TDEC gave us. One of them came out to be about $46,000. That's a wood fibrous substitute that would meet the requirements. The other one was trying to go ahead and extend what we were doing as part of this project to the rest of it, and that was about $460,000. So
this 46,000 or the 240 total is going to need to come from where? From fund balance? Is it already in the budget?
it's not currently in the budget because when we did the budget, we had not received the grant yet. So it's not in there. We're going to take it out of the governor's local support grant, which will leave us, I believe we looked at it earlier today, we still have about $140,000 left from last year's grant. The governor's local support grant, that came out, we received that last fiscal year.
We're gonna have to have 144,000 come out of fund balance to take care of this.
No, sir, once we take this money out, you'll still have 140-something thousand left in that grant money.
All those gonna be grant money come out of fund.
Well, we're gonna get reimbursed up to $98,000 as part of a local Parks and Recreation Fund grant. That's what LPRF stands for. We received a grant last year from the state when everybody was dealing with COVID of, I believe it's $730-something thousand. Of that amount, we're proposing to take that 240, which it'll be 240 up front, and then you're gonna be reimbursed in 98. So after you get your 98, your total out of pocket is not gonna be the entire 240. But up front, we're proposing to take the 240 out of the remaining funds of the governor's local support grant. Once you take out the 240, that'll leave us roughly $143,000 remaining in that grant money. Well, you can either put it there, which would kind of complicate the accounting for that because you just have to allocate that somewhere, or you can have it go back into your general fund. Amy and I talked today, and we feel it'd be better to send it into your general fund instead of leaving it in that reserve.
Taking this out of there. Any other discussion? Yes. Just do it. This doesn't need to go to Parks and Rec, y'all have already talked about this, looked at it. Yeah. Okay. So this just needs to go to budget finance. Everyone okay with that? We have a motion to send it to budget and finance. Ms. Atwood, did you make a motion?
Yes.
Have a motion by Ms. Atwood, second by Mr. Donald. Send this on over to Budget and Finance Committee. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We'll do that then. 3-star grant, we've talked about this and theirs and those things, anything changed.
Nothing's changed. This is a grant we're getting as part of the 3-star program. This was a competitive grant. Only 50 communities throughout the state got some of this money. So we did receive that. That is for wayfinding, which is basically directional signs. It's trying to get people to small businesses in downtown and those kind of things. This was recommended in the 2016 transportation study that was done through TDOT grant, and then also as part of the retail strategies contract with Industrial Development Board, they also recommended in their downtown strategic plan that you do wayfinding. So 2 separate plans have suggested to do this. We submitted that to 3-star, and it did get funded. And this $47,500, that is complete, 100% reimbursable from ECD. So once we get done with the project, our total out-of-pocket cost will be $0.
Any questions on that? Rule by in budget finance. Ms. Ford, next motion in budget finance, Mr. Rhodes, second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Does carry.
And Mr. Chairman, I do have to update you on one thing. I received the actual grant contract today at about 2 o'clock. The deadline for me to sign that contract is August 10th. So I have to sign it before it ever goes to budget and finance. But as I said, this is 100% grant money. We don't, at the end of it, we won't be out of pocket a single penny unless we go over it, which we're going to make sure we don't, because we're going to structure it so that we do the project for $47,500.
Any objection to that, Mr. Ford? If we can entertain that motion and vote on it, may not be proper, since the steering committee typically does not conduct the business of the commission, but we can absolutely send our wishes on an issue, I think, and that would do that. Entertain your motion, Mr. Ford. Do we have a second? Mr. Gregory makes a second. All in favor of this body giving approval to the mayor to carry forward with this, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mayor, is that good enough for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Other discussion, commissioners, anyone have anything you want to bring up? Mr. Ford? That will go to personnel committee. I think that's where they're gonna take it up first. The wage,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
yeah, the wage and the wage and hour study recommendations, that's gonna be taken up in personnel committee.
Yes, sir, the changes to the personnel policy as well as the compensation study minus the insurance provisions have already been, I think, sent to Mr. Ferguson as the head of the committee, and I think I've also sent that to the other commission members.
I think we decided that last month that it go to personnel first. Yeah. And that will be at your next meeting. When is your next meeting? The 12th. Mr. Gully, do you have something?
This may not be the proper place, but I know, it sounds like the building is going to meet soon and make a decision there on some things. I'm sure a lot of us have noticed we really struggle with sun coming in this right side of our courthouse here. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but it definitely has some issues from time to time. Maybe the wrong place to have this discussion, the wrong piece, but I would like to see a building. I don't know what we can do that keeps us inside our, you know, when I've learned, here's the reason I say it this way. It seems when we talk about doing anything in the courthouse, we really need to get some approval from some committees, some places. I'd love to see some shades put above these windows, but it appears that we need to send that somewhere, in my opinion. Not my opinion, but my learning knowledge, I guess, here things before we make any additions to the courthouse.
So you're
I'm asking what we need to do.
about putting shade
Yes,
on the
sir.
windows? Building committee.
That's okay. If that's the case, I would ask it. I know it's not on the agenda, and it may not be proper tonight. We'll do it the next time, but if that needs to happen, just to.
Let's get with the chairman of the building committee. I'm sure he'll add it to the agenda. That's Mr. Hart. I think that's the proper way to handle it. Yeah. It is a problem. We don't know.
Well, the issue is it's coming through the round window, not the other one up top. That's gonna be the problem, and Mr. Slee and I've already discussed it, and as far as putting shades up, it'll be in the budget, we don't need your approval, as long as it comes in the budget amount for building improvements.
It's gonna be hard to get anything to those round tops. Typically what they do is like a curtain with a kind of a rosette pleated thing. We used to do them a lot in Nashville, but it can be addressed, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've already talked to Mr. Slee, and I believe he came up, took measurements to try to find the shade that's gonna come down. Again, it'll be on the square or the rectangular part, it's the issues, the kind of round at top.
Yeah, for a second, I want to go back to that 3-star grant, which I think is very good. It's 100% nothing out of the county's pocket. But I do want to question the ability of this committee to give the authority to do anything, because our committees traditionally are only here for suggestions and to move things to the full body. Now, I know we're under the gun for an August the 10th deadline, which is problematic because our court doesn't even meet to the end of the month. But I want to question and caution the committees that think that they have the ability to allow people or in government agencies to do things. We're here just to recommend and review. And so I want to note record that if you can go back and do that, I'm a no on that one, just on that principle, just because I'm concerned about that. So, but I'm in favor of the grant, obviously, but I think procedurally we got caught at the deadline and probably shouldn't have, but that's what I want to say about that.
Mr. Chairman, if the wording of the authority, and I would agree with Mr. Ferguson on that, the authority sounds like this committee can do something it can't, because only the full commission can do that. And if Mr. Ferguson, if he wants to revisit it, I'd suggest making a motion to revisit an item previously voted on and make that specific mention of the 3-star grant being an issue previously voted on. If it was properly second, revisit it, change the word authority to support. Then that way you're just saying we support, go ahead and sign and extend authority.
I think my understanding was that we were making basically a recommendation that it be done, but, what the definition of your steering committee is, says serves to counsel and advise the chairman and the mayor, provides logistics on proposed legislation, resolution, and ordinances, steering them to the proper committee, gives input on all matters of commission activities, assign tasks to committees. That's the purpose of this committee. I think this committee has given input on this matter and has, where it says to steer it to the proper committee and assign tasks. Basically, we have steered it to the mayor to take care of it, but that's just my interpretation of the way I look at it. But I understand your caution, and I was a little reticent to even go down that road.
Because I heard the word to authorize, and to authorize is a pretty, I agree with what you said. Maybe we're gonna go back and redo that. But now, maybe I'm splitting hairs, but we gotta be careful what we do that.
Could you restate the motion as you have it for the minutes?
Motion by Ford, second by Gully, to send the budget and finance as for grants this time today. I didn't actually put that in. So.
About the 3-star grant.
That's what I'm saying, I did not put it.
I was about to say, the motion that you're reading there, that was, I seconded it, was for the number 1 under that piece, budget amendments. We only discussed the, yeah, that's okay in that case, just make sure that we're clear on that part. I actually voted in no way on that one. It said vote aye, and I didn't vote. I didn't give you an option for abstaining on that piece, but I would have abstained, not questioning how we did or any of that piece, but I think under abstention, you give a reason for your abstention. My abstention would have been, I'm not sure where we stand in our abilities there.
Are you going to call a special meeting of the county commission to address this, Mayor, if we don't do this?
No, as a matter of fact, I'm probably just gonna sign a contract. Well, I mean, this is something we've talked about. It's something that's been discussed for a long time. Again, I have not seen the county commission ever turn down 100% free money. And I don't think they're going to now, especially when we've had 2 consecutive plans paid for by either this county government or industrial development board, both of whom strongly, and I want to use the word strongly recommend we do this. And given, I would like to take it to the full commission, however, given that I got it today and I gotta have it signed by the 10th, and if I don't sign it, we don't get the money. I'm probably just gonna go ahead and sign it, but I would like, if you all wanna discuss it and you wanna say you support me signing it, I will gladly take your support, but at this point, I hate to say it's a done deal, but I'm kinda gonna sign it.
I feel like that was the intent of what we were trying to do. I just want to.
I do too, because I'm in favor of it too, so. But the verbiage kind of threw me off a little bit, because as we have been reminded before in committees, we're just here to recommend and support and toss around ideas and decide on, but we don't have the authority to.
I agree with what you're saying, with your sentiment. I don't think you need our permission to sign it. I think you can sign it and be just happy as a lark. But I appreciate you asking us and letting us know about it, and I feel like we should at least try to support it, Mr. Moore.
Could, if you make the corporate, and go ahead and approve what he's doing. And you could state it.
Retroactively approve something or not, but we can possibly do that. If we think we need to. Then what happens if we vote not to? Then you're in a bigger mess than you are now.
Yes, sir. I think it was given an option. We might go back and relook at that vote. Maybe make a motion to go back and relook at that item. Is that an option that I heard there a minute ago?
We can. I mean,
and just restate it as a support. I would certainly be in favor of a support grant here, of supporting his signing of it. That was not what my negative was there in this case, or abstaining. I just didn't vote.
$47,000.
100% with you on that.
Are you making a motion?
I would put that in a motion that we revisit line item F of the budget number 2.
All right. We have a motion to revisit the vote and the discussion on the 3-star grant. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Nolan. All in favor of going back and looking at this again, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion to revisit it carries. I'll open the floor to discussion on the original Restart Grant 47.5 that the mayor needs to sign by the team. Mr. Gunn.
I'd like to make a motion that we look at this, that we should give a support of our mayor signing that piece prior, not just our support for years, all I would ask that motion to be.
And I'd like to second that.
Okay, we do have a motion to support the mayor in signing this agreement for this grant money. And we do have a motion by Mr. Gully and a second by Mr. Ferguson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any abstentions? Anyone like to change their vote? You can do it. I'll do it. All right.
You know, I might like to say also, Mr. Jewell, before we go any further, that I know it sounds like we're splitting hairs here. I do understand that, and it's tough on the job she's doing, but I think it's important going forward that we always look and understand that where our roles are, where our places are, and that we make sure. I don't think anybody tried to go outside that. That's not what I'm saying. But I wanted to make sure our records didn't look like we went outside that piece when people are looking back upon that.
Mr. Joe,
Yes.
a few months ago, we discussed the tornado siren. Has there ever been anything accomplished or done on that?
We did finally get the company to come out and look at it. Somehow, some way, the lines got to it, got cut, and some of the equipment is no longer there. I don't know, we don't know what happened. It's just not there anymore. And they do recommend some, I don't want to say refurbishment, but it has some work that needs to be done. The quote we got was $12,700 something. And I've spoken to Director Beatty about it, and I said, do you feel this is good use of funds? And his opinion was at the time that if we're going to spend $12,000 something, he'd rather buy a bunch of weather radios and give those out to the public versus putting it on to the tornado siren, because he says when it goes off, he can't even hear it at his house, and he just lives right over here. So that's an item. I believe he's also going to discuss an ambulance, so we're going to take that to emergency services, because he's supposed to go to a conference later this week about their ambulance they've discussed and get a little bit more information on that. So once we got those two items together, we'll bring it to the emergency services committee and get their input on how they want to proceed on the tornado siren. I will also stress that if you sign up for the sheriff's department's alerts, you will get a weather alerts as well as any other alerts coming from the sheriff's department, because when we had that tornado on May 4th that hit 40 yards from my house, right before it hit, I got an alert from the sheriff's department. Now, I wasn't able to get anywhere. I was trying to help my dad, but at that time, I did get the alert.
Basically, what I'm getting out of it, this is gonna be done away with and not pursued any further.
Possibly. I don't think that decision's been made. It's going to be costly to try to repair it, is my understanding, because of the age of it. Any kind of technological equipment like that, the minute you put it up, it's obsolete. And I think that's one of the issues that they threw out at us. I wasn't in on it, didn't get to talk to them personally, but that's some of their concerns is even if you do fix it, how long are you ever going to be able to fix it again 3 months from now? So.
Yeah, one of the issues is it works off a computer system that is, however, whenever it was installed, that's the original computer system, so it needs to be updated. There's other items that need to be added to the system, and other work needs to be done to bring it up to modern standards. And like I said, the quote was, I believe, $12,700.
Well, do we need to look at maybe spending a little more and putting more out in the county at different places where it could cover county-wide, or?
Probably the discussion we had before was your high density and how far it really carries. It's only really effective in high density areas like the city where you have some neighborhoods. If you want to put one in, you'd have to put 50 to put them hot marked around the county where the whole county could probably hear from them, but we can certainly, you know, talk to some consultant, somebody that does this, an engineer, acoustic engineer, whatever, that can give us some input on it, but sure, that's what you want to do. I mean, say, just try to get some information, we'll get it to the right committee. Mr. Nolan?
But, when we got that styrene, we asked for 12. We got one.
I remember that.
That's all this thing would give us is one.
We got that on a grant, I believe, and the grant request was for multiple locations, multiple, and all we were approved for was enough to put one up, and it was even questioned at that time, my best recollection, is how effective is this going to be? But since it was grant money, we didn't have to pay for it, we went ahead and did it.
Am I correct that that was funds the county received when the tornado hit Columbia Gulf out here?
It was part of that settlement, tornado that came through that weekend, we had so much damage, and we were without gas and electricity for a couple of days. Part of that settlement is my remembrance. I've slept a lot, I'm getting old and feeble, but that's my remembrances of it.
I might state with the mayor there in this case, the May 4th that came through very close to home, we had adequate notice. I live in an area where I don't have much cell service or anything of that nature, and we had plenty of adequate notice. I think today's technology is, you know, we're talking about a time when those tornadoes came through of 2007, 2008, if I'm not mistaken. So our technologies have gotten quite a bit more advanced in that time.
Our enhanced 911 system is way ahead of where it was when we put that up. The morning that we had the tornado, you and I got hit and the mayor, about as hard as anybody in this room. Both our phones went off. That's when I heard that, I said, let's go to the basement. I mean, it was, wonder what that is. We knew, and we got down. And I think if people will avail themselves of asking to be put into that system, with everybody now using cell phones and things, it's a whole lot better, easier, quicker for us to notify people than it ever was before. But certainly we can look at it, Mr. Clarity. If you want to spend a little time looking into it and find out who does it or get them up here to talk to us, I think that'd be great. Public comments? Seeing none? I'd entertain them. Oh, you are going to speak, okay. Well, you put up one hand, but you put up two.
Well, I just want to get on the bandwagon by saying the Industrial Development Board fully supports the endeavor of authorizing the mayor to sign the grant for the 10th. It seemed like everybody was getting some fun with that, so I wanted to get on the bandwagon. Couple things. I know you guys have a daunting task ahead of you with this proposed jail, and I can't imagine how long it's going to take to even get it enacted, and then it'll take 3 to 5 years probably to build the darn thing once it's funded. But I really fear for you as our community leaders as this wheel tax sunsets pretty soon. It's already a hot potato on getting a new one to take its place so that there's no break in continuity of people paying wheel tax. But if you let that thing expire before you adopt a new one to cover the jail, it's going to be infinitely more difficult to explain to the general public. It's already seems to be quite difficult for most of the general public to grasp that it is not the same tax as a new tax. The old tax will end, the new tax will take its place sequentially. But if you let it gap for a year or two and then you try to reinstitute it, especially it'll have to be at a higher rate. When that was instituted 20 years ago, $40 is now worth about $26 in our today's money. So, and you're talking about a project that's a lot more expensive. So I really don't envy you for that. But no, the wheels of government turn very slow, and it's a big, complex monster to put through all the committees and get all the approvals and find all the funding, but I don't know how you're going to do it. The only thing that I keep hearing is that you can't incarcerate yourself out of this situation. You can't continue to build jails big enough to incarcerate the people as they're growing. The female population is growing. As community leaders, you may want to consider a more proactive approach that could take place potentially much, much sooner than building a jail, and that is programs to reduce recidivism. That is something that would be infinitely cheaper, take effect much, much faster, and it would stave off the immediate need for a larger jail. Now, I totally support your endeavor in putting a large criminal justice center together. We're all in one house. That's greater continuity, it's greater security. Everybody's under one roof. Once they go through that gate, everybody's in the same place, but I think it ultimately has to be done. And I like the idea that it's being built with the forethought of expandability in the future, because we are continuing to grow. I heard a figure the other day, and Mr. Gully can elaborate. I don't know if this is true, but I heard we have 400 new students this year enrolled in school. Our numbers of population have grown roughly 30% in the last 3 to 5 years, and it's going to continue. It's not slowing down. So if the figure that I heard from the mayor, that 4 to 5% of your population visit the jail at one point in time or another, it's starting to be a big number, especially with the female population is growing exponentially. So I guess I just wanted to express my support for you, my fear for what you have to go through to make this happen with the wheel tax in the future. And I appreciate your support with helping the mayor expedite the grant for the Wayfinder signs. We're very excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. I will say that not building a jail is not an option. We're buying time with the state right now simply because they know we are actively in pursuit of this, looking to do something. If we don't want to do anything and we want to say we're just going to make do with what we've got, they're going to say you got to build a jail. And I'd rather us be in charge of doing this the way we want it, where and how, than for them to come in and dictate what we're going to do and how quick we're going to do it. And that is seriously the situation we're in. They have told us, you have to have a jail, work on it, and they're going to give us a little grace, I guess you'd say, a little grace, to put it together and make it happen that we would not have if they just came in and said, you've got to do it, slam the thing down. Mr. Ford.
I want to say in conjunction with what you just said, many people don't know it. I was on the school board when we started taking a look at building a school. First, we looked at building elementary schools. Come to the county court says, we want you to build a high school. Well, most people don't realize that I had a couple of people jump all over me. We done had 2 letters from the state. They said, we're going to give you 2 years to be in the process of building a school. What you build is up to y'all. And we're going to be in the same situation down the road with this jail, except it's going to be the biggest, probably the most expensive things ever been built in Travis County. And it's going to hurt. That's why I keep saying, let's don't sit around on our laurels and lose this wheel tax. It's bringing in what, $330 to $350 a year, and that's at $40. You can double that, and it still ain't going to cover it all. You're talking about, let's say the worst you know, 25 million. Over how many years, I don't know. But the interstate 25 million is a whole lot of money. Even if you get a real good rate like we're getting now. So I'm very, very concerned about, I know it's moving slow, but I'm more concerned about the fact that I don't see us doing nothing about this wheel tax. If we lose that, you're talking about throwing people in Travis County with one big load.
I will say that the wheel tax, the way it is written, the way that ordinance is written, you cannot up it, you cannot extend it, you cannot change it in any way. It will sunset. If this body wants to enact another one, that's fine. But I don't want to enact a $40 wheel tax, and it's gonna take a $120 wheel tax, but we don't know what it's gonna take at this point. We really don't know what it's gonna take, and until we, oh, okay, Mr. Ford, are you making a motion for us to go ahead and do a $40 wheel tax? Okay, $80 wheel tax? $100 wheel tax? Well, we've got, okay, what if we go through the motions, go through this, and we enact an $80 wheel tax, and we find out that's not gonna be enough? I'm just saying, let's find out what it's gonna cost first. And if you don't agree with me with that, then go ahead and make a motion for a wheel tax, and we'll get it on the agenda. But I'm not gonna make a motion for a wheel tax when I can't explain to the public how much money is gonna be needed. I can't. No, it won't. Hopefully it won't. It could, but you know, I don't want to put that burden on anyone. But we keep acting like the people have to vote on this. I'm not so sure that the people have to vote on this. They can. It can be this body make that decision if we have the wherewithal to do that. It's an option. We can either vote it in, or we can put it to a referendum. We have that option. Well, I have to agree, but you keep telling us that we need to do something about it. I don't know what we can do. What specifically do you want us to do?
I want to see us come forward with a wheel tax. It doesn't matter what we say, the wheel tax ain't gonna pay for all our people. Still gonna have to put something property on the thing. But you don't have to get it all, 38% of the plan. You don't get a taxpayer, put all that on.
How much do you?
The $40 ain't gonna tax.
Mr. Gregory, did you want to say something?
I just think most of these criminal justice centers in the past few years have been paid for by the majority from the state inmates. And I'm hoping if we build them, we'll get it for the state inmates to help offset right there. But I mean, they talk about recidivism right now, and trying to lower come up with all these other options for inmates or whatever.
We've been warned about doing that.
Well, I think the state has warned us that you can't go out here and build a jail and expect the state inmates to pay for it. Now, certainly if you, and some of them are getting in trouble because they're pulling inmates out of it, and now they don't have the money to pay for it. So, you know, if we have extra room, you can put state inmates in there as long as you have the room, and then as you need it for your own needs, then you just supplant them. And that's kind of what we did down here. That's what we did down here. But this is a big issue, guys. This is a big issue. We all have to take it seriously. We need to talk to as many people as we possibly can. I know the mayor has spent many hours trying to deal with this. This committee has spent already many hours. A lot of people have put a lot of time just getting to this point. And there's a lot more to come. There's a lot more to come. But that's just where we're at right now, I think. Yes.
I've talked to many property owners, and not one of them has rejected the fact that we're gonna have to have a wheel tax to do this. It might be more here to think about maybe emphasizing the fact that we don't have a choice. Sooner or later, we're gonna have to build a jail, don't the state's gonna shut it down. Maybe the public needs a little bit of pre-warning to that effect.
Agree. Anyone else? I do have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Mr. Ford, make a second. All in favor, please say aye.